I've been reading Genesis chapter 2, and a few questions kept coming to mind. In the first 3 verses, it says that God finished his work, rested on the seventh day, and sanctified it. I've heard the idea before that we might be living in the seventh day. But what if that's not the case? What if we are actually living in the sixth day? And the seventh day comes after everything described in Revelation, the final judgment, the new heaven, and the new Jerusalem. From God's perspective, it may already be complete, while from our perspective, we are still living it out in time. If God exists outside of time, then rest does not necessarily mean inactivity. It could mean completion. Then in verses 4 to 6, it says that God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and that there was no man to till the ground. But instead a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. If plants were created only days earlier, why was there already a need to water the ground? And why no rain at all? What was the purpose of the mist coming from the earth rather than water falling from the sky? Then in verse 7, it says God formed man from the dust of the ground, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. The verse mentions the body, made from the ground, and the soul coming from God's breath. But what about the spirit of man? Where does it come from? And what is the difference between the soul and the spirit? Later, in verse 19, it says that God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air from the ground. But there is no mention of God breathing into them. Does that mean animals are not living souls in the same way humans are? If so, how are they alive? Is that where the spirit comes in? Then in verses 8 through 15, it talks about the Garden of Eden. God placed in the garden every tree that was pleasant to the sight and good for food. And then it specifically mentions the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Why place those trees in the garden at all if they were not meant to be eaten? It also says that a river went out of Eden to water the garden. Once again, not rain, but water coming from the earth. Even after man was created to dress and keep the garden, rain still is not mentioned. Then in verses 16 and 17, God tells Adam that in the day he eats from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he will surely die. What kind of death was this? Physical death, spiritual death, or something else entirely, since Adam did not physically die that same day. Finally, in verses 21 through 25, God creates the woman from the rib of the man, and it says that to become one flesh. Is that why God did not separately warn the woman about the tree? Because they were already considered one flesh, and Adam had already been told. These are not conclusions, just questions that stood out to me while reading Genesis 2. Thanks for watching.